No Peace for the Wicked by Pip Granger. Read by Maggie Mash. If only my mother could have seen me, on my knees deep in the heart of sinful Soho, with a mouthful of pins, taking up the hem of a stunning creation in sequin-encrusted scarlet. The gorgeous gaudiness of the dress on its own would have had her praying so hard her poor knees would have been quite worn out. Such sinful waste. And scarlet, the colour of harlots and fallen women. But the fact that it was being worn by Freddie the Frock would have finished her off completely, despite the innocent explanation. Being on the short side, Freddie often stood in for absent customers when a hem needed seeing to. Mother would have died of mortification anyway if she hadn't already done that when I married Sid. Or so my aunts always said. Luckily, if the old darling could see me at all, it was from the safe haven of the other side, where shame couldn't kill her for a second time. Anything could bring on an attack of mortal shame in my childhood home. Dropping an H, talking with one's mouth full, wearing red, showing an E, lipstick, laughing on a Sunday, whistling at any time, playing with the children at my school, or worse, in the street. I remember the hours I spent, with my nose pressed to the window, watching the other girls, skirts tucked into their bloomers, as they leapfrogged over their giggling friends, or did handstands against the sooty brick walls along our road, or skipped, using someone's mum's washing line purloined for the purpose. I longed and longed to join them, despite my mother's and aunt's holy horror, or perhaps because of it. But I never did. At least, not until some time after I'd met Sid, and by then I was too old for it. Well, almost. I did once run amok in Regent's Park with a skipping rope, and leapfrog over the chunky black bollards that kept vehicles out, but I didn't tuck my skirt into my underwear. I was definitely too old for that. It certainly was a stretch. The journey from my early years in Islington to the theatrical costumiers in St. Anne's Court where I worked. However, all that's another story. This one involves some of the best friends I've ever had, and a lovely girl called Peace. And it all began in the first few weeks of 1956. Not long after I moved into the small flat above Bandy's, a drinking club that nestled in an alley just round the corner from Old Compton Street. Everybody called it Freddie the Frock's, but in fact, the theatrical costumiers where I worked was owned and run by Freddie and his partner Anthony. My job had become the best part of my life since I'd been there. I loved the shop and its gorgeous fabrics. I loved the colourful customers, and I adored my two bosses. I thought I'd strayed into Wonderland the very first time I walked into the place, and it still felt like Wonderland to me a year or two later. The immediate thing that confronted me as I walked nervously through the door on my first day was 100 empty eye sockets belonging to a display of masks on the wall opposite the door. Some were glamorous jewelled eye masks, incredibly elaborate in shape and decoration, and held on sticks. Others depicted fearsome characters like phantoms, monsters and devils, and were fixed to the head with elastic that was meant to be hidden by an appropriate hat. In the back room were stands that held whole heads, like asses or cows with crumpled horns, but we didn't keep many of those, as they took up too much room. They were hauled out of storage as and when they were needed, along with the theatrical armour, Puss in Boots's boots, Tinker Bell's wings, and Captain Hook's hook and jacket, complete with ticking crocodile. The counter ran the whole width of the shop, so we could roll out bolts of fabric and measure them against the brass yard rule attached to its edge. The counter of mellow beechwood had seen years of service, long before
Sample complete. Ready to continue?